We are live.
Welcome to the Undercard Supercast for April 29th, 2014. I'm your host, founder, editor, and staunch believer that I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In is about cocaine of Undercard superstar, Luke Irwin. Joining me tonight, he says his comedy idol is Jay Leno, Ben Cohn.
Oh, that's low. That's not even... No.
The ladies say he has the sex appeal of cornflake diarrhea, Dan Galvan.
That shit's hot. That shit's hot, bro.
Next to him, he once lost a push-up contest to Charles Nelson Riley, Earl Montclair. And lastly, you may know him as the vocal leader of the Free Sterling Twitter campaign, Josh Hall.
Hell yeah.
Dateline, your favorite chair, soiled in excitement from fights over the weekend. In honor of John Jones's favorite strike in the striking world, who takes home your golden eye gouge over the weekend? And who is the unlucky participant to take home the feared, disgusting, abhorrent, erotic golden poop? Ben.
The golden eye gouge has to go to the king of eye gouges. It's got to go to John Jones, you know. There's no way to deny he's the #1 fighter in the world. He completely and totally dismantled Glover. He displayed skills that we haven't seen out of him before. He was infighting phenomenally. The 5th round, he was kind of toying and tooling. He did the poor imitation of Roy Jones, the hands behind the back, the left hook. There's a sequence in the 5th where he's just ducking under punches by Glover and landing at will. He looked fantastic. And aside from the eye gouges, which really is an issue in my opinion, but he definitely deserves the golden eye gouge because he really has established himself as the #1 fighter on the planet, and he's setting himself up for a really, really, really anticipated rematch with Gustafsson, because he's shown noticeable improvements in the areas where he had the most trouble with Gustafsson. So that's really intriguing to see how Gustafsson will deal with that. The golden poop has got to go, in my opinion, to Charlie Brenneman, and it really sucks because, as I said, I really like him. He's a really nice guy, and it's got to be the end of his UFC run. He's gotten knocked out twice in a row. He's gotten dropped to Beneil Dariush and choked out in the 1st round. He looked great against Castillo in the 1st, and then got knocked out with one hell of a punch. I don't know. I think they're gonna cut him, and I really feel for him. But he definitely has got the golden poop because of that. That he's the only one on the card that I can think that they're gonna cut for sure.
Dan?
Golden eye gouge, and just a half second on the eye gouging. It's definitely like unsportsmanlike, but as long as it's within the rules, I don't have a major problem with it. I do think the referee should come to the fight thinking on the 2nd offense, that's a point taken away, just because he knows that. Anyways, as far as who I would give the award to, let's give it to Chris Beal, man. What a way to start off the card with, according to Joe Rogan, the greatest knee of all time, which it wasn't, but it was still really awesome. And, Patrick Williams was kind of green. He had trouble with the movement and whatnot, ended up right next to the cage, and then ended up with Chris Beal knocking him in the head with his knee. As far as the cold golden poop, it probably goes to the loser of the lone disappointing bout on this card, and that's Jessamine Duke. She has such a huge reach that it's really painful to see her not use it consistently. She does from time to time, but she's not able to piece it together, where that would give her a significant advantage against somebody like Betch Correa, who she has like a 10-inch reach advantage over. Jessamine Duke will probably be good in the future, but I do think it's time for her to maybe go to Invicta and just work on her craft. But she gets the golden poop.
Kind of reminds me of Stephen Struve. Not the Invicta part, but...
Struve at least made his losses entertaining.
True.
And Struve also, he also needs to... I think Struve knows he needs to work on his reach. I think he just loves slugging too much.
Yeah, that'll go well when he comes back.
As far as the golden eye gouge goes, I have to give it to Anthony Rumble Johnson because, I mean, he looked amazing. That was the best performance he's ever put on against probably easily the best 205-pounder he's ever fought, one of the best people he's ever fought, if not the best. And he went in there and stuffed takedowns and shut Phil down and made Phil have essentially no game plan. Like once Phil realized he couldn't get him down, he was resigned to his fate, and he knew Rumble was just going to box him up for 15 or until he wanted to end it. And he showed a much improved cardio, a much better sense of not emptying the tank after every single time he's got somebody stunned or hurt a little bit. I mean, it was just a brilliant performance. It was fantastic. I really couldn't be happier for the guy. Now, the golden poop goes to hyperbole. Because all in the build-up to this fight, this was the most stacked card the UFC has ever put on, which is anybody who's paid attention to any UFC cards at all knows this is just a steaming pile of horse shit. But it's lazy. It's absolutely lazy and like dim-witted and thoughtless promotion, thoughtless booking, everything. Habitual Floridian criminal Mookie Alexander wrote a great piece about it on Bloody Elbow about how it's just nonsense, it's just garbage, and they're just being lazy, and it's just really, really poor promotion, and it's really unfair. Kind of along those lines as well, Dan alluded to earlier, the greatest flying knee ever by Chris Beal. Give me a fucking break, man. Like really, I'm like Joe Rogan. You've never seen flying knees from Kid Yamamoto, James Irvin, Pablo Garza, Jose Aldo, Carlos Condit. Like all of those flying knees landed more flush, more spectacular visually. All of those.
Clifford Starks.
Right. I mean,
holy shit.
Pablo Garza. I thought he killed that poor guy that he kneed in the face. So I mean, was it great? Yeah. I mean, it was pretty good. It earned him knockout of the night, and deservedly so. But to sit there and say that every single thing is the greatest ever, this pathetic desire to make everything the greatest of all time, whether it was halfway decent or really, really good, it's like every time like a catcher hits a home run at Fenway Park, nobody's replacing Carlton Fisk's home run. It's the best home run ever hit. Like real sports with real credible people don't have to do shit like that, and it's embarrassing that we have to be so hyperbolic and exaggerate all the time.
And it doesn't work, man. Right? It doesn't work. Like just say this is the best fighter ever, and he's fighting a guy that presents some challenges, and I'm excited for that, And whenever you do have a great fight, then it means something. It doesn't even help the UFC by being that using that much hyperbole.
Well, right, and going in there on the pre-show in the Joe and Dana shout fest, and Dana's running his mouth about how there's no way in hell Glover should be a 5 or 6 to 1 underdog. No, he went in there and looked exactly like a 5 to 6 1 dog, exactly like he was. So don't try to tell me something that isn't there, man. We're not as dumb as we look, most of us.
You're trying to tell me that Jared Saltamacchia did not have the greatest home run in Boston Red Sox history by a catcher?
I'm going to have to rewatch it, but I don't think he did. If Joe, maybe I'll watch it with Joe.
That's an experience. I think Bellator has a pretty awesome flying knee knockout. I think like once a month. So yeah.
I don't know. Nothing's gonna beat Shinzo Machida's knee in my opinion.
That was scary.
That was
the single
most beautiful and scary knee I've seen.
It's been replaced, sir.
One finish that I will absolutely not argue as the best of all time was the best guillotine choke of all time was Dan Miller in IFL.
The standing guillotine?
He was going to pop his head off.
I don't know. Scott Jorgensen might.
Where his opponent could kiss his own nipple.
I don't know. Scott Jorgensen's opponent was Scott Jorgensen, and WC might argue with that.
Ben, you're wrong, and you should feel bad.
Not really. That was pretty intense.
Golden eye gouge. Well, since Earl had to take Rumble from me, who I did pick to win that fight, and you all laughed at me, so ha. Big things. Cheeseburgers.
A lot of burgers.
Yes. Okay, well, since he took Anthony Johnson, who I actually do want to say one thing about quickly, that it was really commendable that I saw him taking a lot of fans to task for laying into Phil Davis on Twitter, saying that he had let them down and telling them, you didn't take the damage in there, shut up and show some respect, which was a really classy thing to do, and he seems to be going out of his way to do that.
Yep.
But if I'm going to have to pick another fighter, Luke Rockhold and his just beautiful combo submission he slapped on Tim Boach with the inverted triangle to secure him, and then the nasty Kimura. That just beautiful to watch.
Tommy Cahill said it best, honestly, in describing that submission. If you haven't seen it, go see it.
Yeah, it's just absolutely perfect. I mean, the technique on it was flawless. He did everything right, and he made Boach look like he didn't belong in the same cage as him. Which, I mean, a lot of people thought that, but even people that thought Boach was going to get destroyed didn't think it was going to go quite like that. And Golden Poop, got to go to Phil Davis for, I think he really, really, really underestimated Anthony Johnson, and it showed. Johnson was prepared like it was the fight of his life, and Davis did not look anywhere near that mentality. And when you have two guys that are that good of athletes in there, if one of them seems to be more prepared and want it more, then that guy's usually going to come out on top.
Breaking news coming across the Twitter feed. Apparently, June 7th for the fight night in Albuquerque, Rafael Dos Anjos will be taking on Jason High.
Interesting.
I'm guessing that High is moving down rather than Dos Anjos moving up. So
Yeah, Jason and I was talking about that. Dude, that's like a...
tweeted by Jason High himself. So
Wow.
Interesting.
It's a tough fight for Jason, man.
Yeah, he really picked a doozy there to drop down a lightweight for it. In fact, that's what he's doing.
I feel like Jason's one of those guys that just gets like the worst matchups. Like the UFC does him no favors, man.
Yeah, he does have some pretty rough draws. He's the anti-Phil Davis. Golden Eye Gouge is going to. As much as I would love to give it just to Lucas Matiz, I can't because he was getting his ass beaten severely. So the best fight of the weekend was John Molina Jr. and Lucas Matiz. For putting it on, it was Matiz was a big favorite, expected to walk right back and back into title contention. Got dropped twice by John Molina Jr. and he ended up coming back to get the knockout late in the fight. But man, it was a hell of a scrap. So my honorable mention, Golden Eye Gouge, is to Betch Correa for dispatching of one of Ronda's cronies and then having an A++ taunt afterwards. And just holding up the four fingers and putting one down. Just fantastic. Now, she gets destroyed by Rousey 8 days out of 7. But, hey, whatever. You cut off one limb. And subsequent worst, for the Golden Poop, I have 2, but they're both coinciding. Number 1, UFC. Early buy rate for the Jones for UFC 172 is 325,000. To which I say, good, because that's what they deserve with their piss poor marketing of this card. They didn't do jack shit with this card. Everyone's busy talking about Ronda and Cyborg. The day before your purported number 1 draw in the company is supposed to be fighting for the world title. It was just awful marketing.
How much you said? 324,000?
325.
Is how much they sold it. Yeah.
What did Rousey do? Because Rousey and McMahon
more than that.
More than that.
It was 350, I think.
Wow, man.
So that's not.
And Kane Jr. didn't do any better either.
Do we need to start watching another sport? Like, I'm a little worried here, guys. This is not a good direction.
It could have done a lot better. It should have done a lot better. They didn't do anything with it. Hopefully, one of these awful buy rates for their champions will be a kick in the ass to Dana and Co. to get on the fucking rails and actually do some work.
But bro, they hit the 18-34s. They were number 1 at 18-34. So shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. All right,
bozo.
It's weird because it seems like the Weidman Silva side, a lot of times the best marketing they do is for the title fights and the cards that would do a much better job selling themselves. Mm-hmm. I happen to really have enjoyed the GSP Hendricks promos and their advertisements and the way they were pushing that fight, and I thought they did a really good job of it, and that's why it sold really nicely. But and Silva Weidman sold itself. They did a horrible job selling that rematch, and it still did phenomenally. But when you have guys like Gustafsson, who's previous fight before the title fight was on FS2, I want to say. It was on FS2, right?
It was on.
It was
It was on. Yeah.
It was on FS2.
It was
and
UFC on Fuel card.
Yeah, Fuel. Fuel was one of the last Fuel ones. And nobody freaking saw it.
Well, the same thing happened with
And now they
Weidman,
put
though.
Ghost
His
on Fight Pass.
Well,
On the-
Weidman,
Yeah, that was
but
disgusting.
with
Because
Silva,
we've learned from our mistakes.
yeah, but with Silva at the time, you could pretty much rely on just his name and people would tune in.
Well, yeah, and that lazy ass style of booking and promotion doesn't really cut it anymore.
It
Just
doesn't
saying
cut
something is so doesn't make it so.
Silva wasn't a draw until late in his career.
Chael. It was till after Chael.
Until Chael.
And even after Chael, you still have the Yushin Okami fight, which drew horribly. It was, what, 350K? So what I'm saying is that they don't have that luxury anymore. They don't have GSP. They don't have Silva. They don't have guys like Liddell or Couture or guys they can just rely on to automatically draw.
Yeah, they can't
They
get
don't know
Chuck
what
to
to do
bring in
without
the...
those guys.
Well, the difference is Chuck Liddell was not always Chuck Liddell. They built him up. They built
Yep.
Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
They built Randy Couture. They built Tito Ortiz. They're not doing shit with anybody on their roster right now.
Because
With-
they feel like, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. I
They didn't really
do.
build Couture. They fed Couture to guys to get destroyed, and it didn't work out that way. He was a happy accident.
Well, it's because we can't process.
When they were booking him against like Pedro Hizzo, that wasn't expecting Randy to come in there and do something. That was expecting Randy to get hurt and
It
for a
comes-
show.
It comes down to oversaturation because we can't process things, and as you have all these things, I feel pressure to put Gustafsson on Fight Pass, so you have a name, so people go to that, but nobody watches it. That hurts you long term. It's the oversaturation. Nothing. We don't digest and process anything. Nothing means anything anymore because we see it every damn week and sometimes twice a week.
I disagree with that. I
I will say
disagree with that.
that the 10 fight card was really I prefer it.
It was awesome, right? It felt.
It really was.
It's
Like if
become
we're
a chore
gonna
at times.
like if we're talking about things that suck, at least a 10 fight card I thought was pretty sweet. Like I didn't feel like I had to sink a whole goddamn day into it, and and then it moved at a halfway decent clip too.
But here's the problem: if you have 10 fight cards consistently, and a lot of the cards get finished in a lot of the fights get finished in the first round, you're going to have that issue with. I remember there was one card where they were, by the end of the prelims, they re-aired 2 or 3 prelim fights. They just
But
needed.
even
to
when
fill
that
time.
happens, they still end up running long on the free TV cards. Like that just happened
Mhm.
recently, and they have all this dead air, and then the main event runs like 25 minutes long, and it's just ridiculous. The pacing is one of the things that they've gotten worse at over the years somehow instead of better.
If we do a few undercard fights that go too quick, or not go quick, but get finished early, it's like, so you play a couple more walkouts and you teach me some more things about these guys that are fighting. I'm already investing my time. Air the walkouts so they can do 3 minutes of explanation. Goldie can go take a fucking Red Bull and Adderall piss, and then and then we can go and I can learn something about these people. Don't just sit there and give me dead air and let me listen to
Absolutely.
Jay goddamn Glazer. Ugh.
Absolutely, man. That's how you develop freaking people. You have these packages that are interesting. Look at what Bellator does. They do these phenomenal packages, but nobody cares because the fighters, well, But if the UFC does these things, then you can build these guys that we believe are high-level fighters, and it's perfect.
But it comes down to the fact that it really is about marketing the UFC rather than the actual individual fighters, because I think Dana is so obsessed with this idea of the mainstream sport. He's really obsessed with this idea. And he looks at organizations like the NFL, the NBA, MLB, and NHL. There's rarely a player that transcends the league, transcends the sport. You're going to an NFL game. If Peyton Manning decided, I don't want to play for the NFL anymore, I'm going to play in the CFL or go to Europe, American fans are not going to start tuning out from the NFL. They're going to still watch the NFL. And I think that's what Dana and company is trying to create. They're trying to make this, you're watching for the 3-letter word that's on the beginning of the that's always on the shorts that we're advertising. You're not watching for John Jones. You're not watching for Johnny Hendricks. You can watch for them for secondaries, and you can have your favorites, but you're watching because it's the UFC.
But they're wrong.
Of course they're wrong. That's the problem. They don't realize they're wrong because up until this point, they've had guys who people would always tune in to see, and they could always rely on that. Now that they don't have that luxury to rely on a GSP, rely on a Silva, rely on a BJ Penn, Chuck Liddell, guys like that, or Brock Lesnar, they're completely stuck because they're not realizing, the people are not tuning in, not because of oversaturation. It's because they don't know, they don't care. I don't think it's the oversaturation. I think if they marketed Jon Jones as this is the greatest fighter to walk the face of the planet at this day and age, watch him. They can market it. People watch Floyd knowing every single time it's going to go to a decision because he's the best in the world, and they know how to promote that. People want to see the best fighters in the world. They want to see the best boxers. They want to see the best kickboxers. So they're going to tune in if you market it like that. If you market Jon Jones as always being in danger, always having the biggest threat in front of him, Glover Teixeira is not the biggest threat he's had. And it's clear to everybody who's knowledgeable about this sport. And it's a huge problem. And while they're spreading thin and they have so many shows, so they're still getting the revenue, they're not going to do anything. Until it starts affecting in every single area, I'm talking Fox, pay-per-view, all forms of free TV, and Fight Pass, they're not going to try and change it because they're making up for their loss in pay-per-view revenue from their free TV. And that's what's allowing them to persist.
I mean, I think that there's actually, there's certainly a lot to that's true, but I am flat out not watching because of oversaturation, because I'm not going to take away from my time where I could seriously be doing several thousand other things and watch Royston Weed fight. I'm not doing it.
My other golden poop goes to Phil Davis.
All right.
Dateline, Baltimore, Maryland. Now that the dust has settled on UFC 172, we can take a look at what's next for the fighters therein. We know Jones has Gustafsson in the fall, but what's next for, say, Glover Teixeira, Luke Rockhold, and Anthony Johnson? We'll go with those three, and Ben, book them out, please.
Luke obviously wants that Vitor Belfort rematch. We have no idea where he wants to, where Vitor is right now. I feel like he's Carmen Sandiego at this point. But if he can't do that rematch, and I really don't think there's much of a point to it, I would say matching him up with somebody like Yoel Romero is a good idea. The reason why I like, also the Bisping match is just stupid and a waste of everyone's time. But Yoel Romero is a good match because either way, no matter who wins, you have a potential for either one to come out as a title contender, and they do need title contenders at middleweight. They need to try and get a line formed, and I think that right now we know that Vitor is a problem. Jacare is kind of hanging around there, and there's a couple of people hanging out. I don't want to see a rematch between Luke Rockhold and Jacare at this moment. But Yoel Romero is 36. They do have to move him along. It's a winnable fight for both of them, in my opinion. I think they both can win that fight, and it has potential to be a really, really exciting fight. With regards to Johnson, he said he doesn't want a title fight, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he wants to work on.
He said he doesn't think he's earned a title shot yet.
Yeah.
All right. So if Glover doesn't have any long-term damage, I would say match him up with Johnson. Really test to see, is he ready for a title shot?
They won't match him up with somebody coming off a loss, though. Highly doubtful.
I could see them doing it, though, because it's clear that Glover Teixeira is not going to win the title.
And his shoulder's pretty jacked up, too.
Yeah, so like I'm saying, if it's not like long term. But right now, I don't know who they can match him up with because he's not going to fight Rashad, as far as I know. Correct? They're teammates.
I would think not.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know that he's said anything about that either way.
Well, I guess if they're just looking to give him some gimme fights, they can match. Not gimme fights, but I guess if they're going to go lower ranked, they can give him the winner of the Fei Xiao Bader fight.
Yeah, him and Fei Xiao should be a good fight.
Yeah.
It's weird because they gave him a guy that was ranked so high for his UFC return that now it's hard to not give him a step down.
Yeah.
You see, Ben, I'm assuming Fei Xiao beats Bader.
Yeah, I know. I got it. Thanks.
Okay. Handedly.
Ryan Bader is not a bad boxer.
Beta by
But I can't.
knockout. Beta by
Not by
knockout.
any means.
Beta by knockout. All if you could suck a dick.
That's
And what if I do?
I hope you choke on it.
Then I will support you either way, Dan.
Dan, we really think that we will all support you.
All right, let's keep it moving.
Yeah. With Glover, I guess he's injured, so there's really not much to do with it.
Daniel?
Luke Rockhold. I think I would like to see him fight someone, and the person I like to see him fight is either Vitor, because I think Vitor's at a point where he needs to take a lateral step, so he makes sure he's still, just to get like a rain check on Vitor because of all the stuff. You want to get a little rain check, so he's in a position to take a lateral step. Luke Rockhold's in a position to take a step forward. I think they meet in a rematch. If not Vitor, I don't mind the Bisping fight simply because that would allow Luke Rockhold to build his build a following and look more impressive. So it's either you go to the extreme of fighting a guy like Vitor, who's right at the weight class, or a guy like Michael Bisping, who's maybe one rung lower than Rockhold. Anthony Johnson, I would like to see him fight it won't. I don't think it will happen because Cormier probably won't want the fight, or Henderson. But I'd like to see him fight the winner of Henderson Cormier, simply because you do that fight and you get like a legitimate, no questions about it contender for John Jones that people can get excited for. And Glover Teixeira, maybe match him up with another 34-year-old heavy hitter with Jimmy Manuwa. I would like to see one of these guys get back in that tier, that upper tier, and one of them probably won't, so why don't you match them together, and maybe we'll get either an exciting brawl or a quick first-round knockout.
Earl?
For Anthony Johnson, I feel like he should fight the loser of Hendo Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I feel like the winner of that one should be like next for Jones. So I would let him fight the loser of that. It gives him time. It gives him a good name and a good person to fight either way, a solid co-main slot or like a Fox headliner or something like that. I think that would be really good for him. You brought up Jimmy Manuwa. I would love to see Rumble fight Jimmy Manuwa. I know it's a huge step down in terms of like ranking and stuff like that, but just for like entertainment purposes, I think that would be excellent. Just really fun.
Manuwa got destroyed his last fight, though.
I know, but still, it would be really fun.
I'd actually, if Dan Henderson wins, imagine that shit.
If Hendo beats Cormier, he's getting a title shot with a lightning quickness.
If Cormier wins, they're throwing him right into a title shot anyway. So I don't think Johnson's going to fight either of those two.
Well, it's just a matter of that fight's what,
Not
next
even,
month?
not even the loser?
No, they won't match him with the loser. I don't think so.
Well, that fight's next month, and you have the Gustafsson fight probably in September, so time frame-wise, it could make sense.
Kind of works. For Luke Rockhold, I'd like to see him in either one of two rematches, either Jacare or Vitor Belfort in Nevada.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then for Glover, I feel like he's going to be out for a while. I think Phil Davis needs to be out for a while, recoup, get himself maybe to a different camp, take some time off, get his mind straight. I'd like to see those two fight each other when they were both ready to come back.
Josh?
Rockhold, I'd like to see his rematch with Jacare. It's been a while since they fought, and I think the two of them could have a hell of a number one contenders bout in a division that needs some contenders to emerge. Teixeira, you could book Teixeira with, hell, you could book him with Phil Davis. Both of them coming off a loss on the same card. If they're both healthy around the same time, I wouldn't hate seeing that fight. See which one of them is really going to hang around the top 10 and which one of them's not. Because they've got to start fleshing out that top 7-8 spots a little better. Because right now it's a mess. And for Rumble, there's not any good fights for Rumble. Because it's either one of the guys that's going to be fighting for the title or the champion, and he's not going to be getting any of those fights. So I guess you book him against the loser of Hendo Cormier, because you don't have other options, and he has said apparently that he's not fighting Rashad. Like, he's gone on the record against that, so that's the only other top 5 guy that's not tied up.
As far as Luke Rockhold goes, I don't want to see the Vitor rematch yet. It's first off, I think it's been way too soon, and secondly, depending on what his, I know his methods are obviously dubious, but Vitor won that pretty damn cleanly. I don't think there's any hurry to get them back in together. Now, I said before that after the Tim Kennedy fight that I really wanted him and Jacare to have a rematch. I don't think Rockhold deserves to be ahead of Tim Kennedy in line right now for a title shot. I know personal feelings and biases aside on Kennedy, he has put together a really, really strong run since coming into the UFC. All right. So
wait, what? Roger Gracie and Rafael Natal?
Oh, Michael Bisping too.
Right, but I mean.
And Natal, okay. Natal, he starched in the first round, and Natal doesn't get knocked out. I mean, Natal's obviously not a quality opponent, but he took care of business when he needed to. And Natal just is, he's a limited fighter, but he doesn't get starched like that. But yeah, okay. In a nutshell, I don't want to see him and Vitor. So if Kennedy, Jacare, Vitor, Rockhold are all kind of in that same area, then I say screw the Jacare Kennedy rematch, go with the Jacare Rockhold rematch, and put Kennedy up against Vitor. That's a fresh matchup, and that'll really kind of decide where both of those fighters are in that instance. When it comes to Glover, if he's hurt, that's one thing. But assuming he's just a little banged up and he can go in a relatively decent time frame, him and Phil Davis kind of works. Also, the Hendo Cormier loser would be another fight that you could look at. And for Rumble, I'm going to go off the board a little bit here. He pulled out of his last fight, so I don't know as to his health, and he is coming off of a win over a top 5 opponent, Little Nog. I know he pulled out of the last fight that he was supposed to be in, but he is an available opponent. He's coming off a win over Rashad. I mean, if he's not looking to get in the title fight and he kind of wants to feel himself out at light heavyweight for a little bit more, that would be a quality fight for him to take, and also it would still technically be an upward mobile move for Little Nog. I think whoever wins Henderson Cormier, especially if it's Cormier, is going to get that title shot immediately. Henderson, I think, just on a sands of time basis, they might give it to. Plus, I can also see them give Henderson that fight because of the UFC 151 shenanigans, where he was supposed to have a title fight. And so I think they would give him that based on kind of a apology basis.
I don't think they can justify that.
Well, they don't need to justify that. They can just say that he beat Cormier to get his title shot. They don't need to come out. They'll need to come out in public and say that. But there's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of dealings about that. Lastly, today, Dateline Las Vegas, Nevada. Today was the official Ultimate Fighter 20 tryouts, with 36 fighters hoping to join the cast of 11 Invicta fighters already secured for the season. There were some big names today. With the full cast revealed, who do you predict will end up in the UFC Women's Straweight title fight? A quick rundown of some of the bigger names that were at the tryouts today. And also, of the Invicta, actually, Invicta's only sending 8, because Juliana Lima, Paige Van Zandt, and Claudia Gadelha are not going to be in the Ultimate Fighter. So some of the bigger names: Heather Jo Clark, Aisling Daly, Lisa Ellis, who should easily make it. Jessica Penne, which if they do anything more than check her ID and wave her directly into the house, they don't know a damn thing about WMMA. Michelle Ould, White Power.
White Pride, bro. White Pride.
Sorry. Karina Taylor, Shara Snyder Chance. There was more so than any men's season I remember. There is a lot of talent here in these tryouts. Penne, Ellis, Schneider,
Justine Kish.
Heather Jo Clark, rather. Daly's a game fighter. there's a lot to like here. So all things considered, who is in the title fight for the 115-pound championship of this world, Ben Cohn?
I'm not. I feel like Jessica Penne will be one of them, the women in the title fight. Her grappling is she's just I think she has the skills on the ground to really give a lot of people issues. I'm struggling between John Calderwood and Carla Esparza as the other, but gut feeling, gonna go with Calderwood.
So you have Calderwood and Penne in the finals.
Yeah.
All right.
I think a dark horse is not my pick, but Justine Kish does have a lot of tools. I mean, she's like a major prospect in the weight class, so who knows? But my pick is one of the major prospects, Tisha Torres. I just think she's really phenomenal, and she's just on the beginning portion of her career. I could see her get into the finals. I do like Calderwood a lot. I think she might run into like a really strong wrestler that's going to put her on her back and out pointer. In the house. It's 16 fighters, so maybe she'll get there. But she has exceptional striking. So I would go Tisha Torres, and I'll be boring and say Carla Esparza.
Earl?
Yeah, I'm going with Tisha Torres and Joanne Calderwood.
That would be a fun friggin' fight. Josh?
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement on Torres, and I really feel like it's a crapshoot for that other spot. A lot of that's really likely to come down to how the draw works out, because stylistically, some fighters are going to match up better with others. It would not surprise me to see Penne sneak through, despite being one of the smaller contestants, assuming that they don't do anything ridiculous at the tryouts. But either Esparza or Calderwood have a very good chance.
Do you think they're going to show any favorable, preferential treatment towards the Invicta fighters? I mean, is that a possibility? Would they kind of give them favorable matchups or give them like a bye into the next round or something?
I don't think so, man. It's all about.
I don't think they would say it publicly, but it will be. I mean, it's going to be something that I'm going to look for.
Maybe.
I would think that you would give the fighters that you think are the more likely ones to win easier matchups early on. I mean, that's generally what you would do if you're setting up a bracket tournament. That's the way you would want to structure it, where the weakest fighter is fighting the best fighter in the first round, and to where you end up with the top fighters left at the end. You don't want your number 1 and number 2 fighters going at it in the first round if you can avoid it, especially when it's for a title at the end.
Well, I'm sure the coaches.
Emmanuel Newton laughs at you.
I'm sure the coaches won't make those
And
fights.
everyone laughs at King Mo.
I like Jessica Penne a lot. Yeah, the size advantage is going to be tough, but she is a hell of a fighter. I think she probably makes it to the final 4. I'm not sure if she makes it to the striking. I'm thinking about Calderwood already. To the finals. Joanne Calderwood again has the striking background and acumen that very, very, very few women in the world, let alone in this specific weight class among this specific sect, have. Women MMA, again, we talk about Rousey being kind of the Hoist Gracie because she has developed and she has tools that, basically WMMA hasn't caught on yet or hasn't evolved to where there will be an effective countermeasure for her. And Calderwood's striking is kind of the same. She has such an extensive background that she can pretty much just control the fight anywhere she wants to, just with her striking. I do feel that she will run into a badass wrestler like Esparza, who could really give her some trouble, or maybe even someone like Penne ahead of time. But I like Calderwood a lot. I think it'll come down to Esparza and either Calderwood or Penne. I think Tisha Torres is a great fighter. I think she just is a little too green yet, and someone will be able to kind of wait her out. And that is it for today's show. We will be back later in the week with Mayweather talk, with Glory talk, some predictions, and we'll look forward to the weekend ahead. So thank you for watching on behalf of all of us, and War Lucas Matisse.